when a well-respected bishop grabbed the mic and fearlessly proclaimed that the BET Awards have officially tainted the gospel category, jaws were on the floor. What exactly do Guerilla, KirkFranklin, and Maverick City have in common in this unexpected collision? Some call it betrayal. Others see it as a reflection of the times. But one thing is undeniable: something sacred is being sold off, and no one saw what came next. Stay tuned, because what you're about to hear might just flip everything you thought you knew about gospel music upside down. The BET Awards have long stood as a platform to celebrate Black excellence, where creators, artists, and culture-defining voices are honored for their impact on both music and society. But this year, something ignited that has left the gospel world ablaze, and not in a celebratory way. Just days after the announcement for the BET Award in the Best Gospel Inspirational Artist category, a video began making rounds online. It showed a prominent bishop stepping into the spotlight to challenge not just the winner but the entire direction the gospel category seems to be taking. His words? Piercing, unfiltered, and charged with purpose. When you have an artist like Guerilla, best known for raw, explicit trap anthems, sharing the same stage and category as gospel heavyweights like Maverick City and KirkFranklin, the question demands to be asked: has gospel completely lost its borders? That's the moment the internet exploded. Reactions, comments, debates flooded every platform. Some praised the evolution of gospel music. Others insisted the church needs to reclaim what they believe has been, in their words, corrupted. But beneath all the noise lies a bigger question: who really has the authority to define gospel music in this era? And is BET truly honoring the spirit of gospel, or just leveraging its name for viewership? In this video, we're pulling back the layers on the entire story, starting with the bishop's unapologetic declaration, Guerilla's startling nomination, Maverick City's noticeable silence, and KirkFranklin's polarizing grip on the industry. We'll also examine BET's evolving standards for gospel recognition, the corporate influence behind faith-based categories, and the hard truth behind gospel's mainstream shift, because this isn't just about a single awards show. This is about gospel's very soul. You're not going to believe what's been said behind closed doors and what insiders are now revealing about BET, KirkFranklin, and Maverick City. Believe me, this is where the story takes a turn. So sit tight, we're breaking it all down, chapter by chapter, with receipts, revelations, and the raw truth. It all began during what seemed like a regular livestream, one that quickly spiraled into viral territory. Bishop Reginald Palmer, a highly regarded figure in both the Pentecostal world and traditional gospel circles, had just finished watching the BET Award nominations when he hopped onto Facebook Live with a blistering message. Holding his Bible in one hand and speaking with fiery conviction, Bishop Palmer stared straight into the camera and declared, "What that is doing isn't honoring gospel, it's mocking it. Gospel music was never supposed to be thrown in with secular profanity, party-centered culture, or artists whose lifestyles stand in direct opposition to biblical teachings." This, he said, was nothing short of a spiritual hijacking. Within 48 hours, his video had been shared over 1 million times. Screenshots of his remarks flooded Instagram and X, formerly Twitter, while TikTok users began stitching his sermon into their own opinion pieces. So, what exactly sparked such a heated reaction? At the center of the storm was the inclusion of Guerilla, Memphis rapper widely known for raw and explicit lyrics, being nominated in the Best Gospel Inspirational Artist category. Placed side by side with gospel icons like KirkFranklin and Maverick City music. To Bishop Palmer, this wasn't just a mistake, it was a slap in the face. "We've allowed culture to overtake the church," he said. "Now we're handing gospel awards to people who wouldn't even walk into a sanctuary unless it benefits their brand." In the days that followed, dozens of pastors and gospel listeners echoed Palmer's frustrations. Hashtags like #ProtectGospelMusic, #NotMyGospel, and #BetExposed began trending rapidly. Meanwhile, blogs and faith-based news outlets were asking the same critical question: what exactly is BET doing to the gospel category, and why? Even some gospel artists cautiously started speaking up, choosing their words carefully, but clearly expressing discomfort. One gospel singer, who chose to remain anonymous, posted and later deleted an Instagram story that read, "If we speak up, we're judged. If we stay quiet, we're complicit. All I know is God didn't call us to be famous. He called us to be set apart." But here's the shocking twist they don't want the public to hear. A leaked internal email allegedly from someone within Bet's production circle revealed that the network had begun rebranding award categories to ensure maximum audience crossover. Put simply, they were trying to make the gospel category feel more accessible, more mainstream, and more appealing to Gen Z and TikTok audiences, even if that meant watering down the definition of gospel itself. This isn't just a passionate bishop venting his frustration. It's part of a much broader, carefully crafted shift that's been building for a while. And Guerilla's nomination? That's only the opening chapter, but what exactly does Guerilla have to say about all this? And where do Maverick City and KirkFranklin truly stand in the middle of this growing storm? Don't go anywhere, because in Section 2, we're diving deep into Guerilla's quiet response, her earlier statements on religion, and why her appearance in the gospel category might not have been as accidental as some believe. When the 2025 BET Award nominations were announced, gospel fans were shocked to find Guerilla's name listed under the Best Gospel Inspirational Artist category. For many, it was so unbelievable that they assumed it had to be a typo or maybe even a glitch on social media. But it wasn't. The Memphis rapper, known for her breakout single FNF, Let's Go, a track packed with profanity and party-driven themes, was officially standing alongside names like KirkFranklin, Erica Campbell, and Maverick City Music. So the immediate question was, how? BET offered no explanation. Guerilla made no mention of the nomination, and her silence only intensified the speculation. Some fans believed she was either surprised or possibly even ashamed, but then others began to dig deeper. And what they uncovered raised even more questions. Guerilla, it turns out, has a surprisingly layered relationship with faith. In an old interview that resurfaced shortly after the uproar began, she revealed that she used to be extremely churchy, as a child singing in the youth choir and regularly attending Bible study. But as her rap career started to rise, she admitted church just didn't feel as important. In that same clip, she laughed and said, "I still believe in God, but I ain't gonna pretend like I'm living right. I just do me." And that single phrase, "I just do me," became a flashpoint for criticism. Because for many gospel purists, that's the exact issue. That is now celebrating artists who want the label of inspirational, without embracing the responsibility that title carries. And the outrage wasn't just limited to preachers and pastors. One prominent gospel music blogger, Sister Faith, wrote, "Guerilla getting nominated for a gospel award while she's out here dropping club bangers about scamming, twerking, and street life? That's like putting Cardi B in a Hillsong choir and calling it inclusion." She concluded with, "This isn't innovation, it's infiltration." But things started to look even more suspicious when a well-known entertainment PR insider posting anonymously on X claimed that Guerilla's nomination wasn't a fluke at all. In fact, it was allegedly a strategic part of BET's new plan to blend inspirational messaging with urban culture to boost younger viewership and increase social media engagement during the awards show. According to that post, Guerilla's nomination came directly from a creative advisory panel that BET had assembled to reimagine how spiritual influence could be presented in hip-hop culture. The goal? To prove that inspiration doesn't have to resemble a traditional Sunday morning service. And guess who's reportedly sitting on that panel? That's right, industry power players connected to both Maverick City and KirkFranklin's label affiliations. Now the dots are really starting to connect. Was Guerilla deliberately positioned as a lightning rod to test just how far the audience's boundaries could be pushed? Was her silence a calculated move meant to ride the publicity wave without stirring even more backlash? And most importantly, has gospel music now been reduced to nothing more than a brand name or trending hashtag rather than upheld as a sacred genre? But Guerilla's just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. Next, we have to talk about Maverick City Music. Because while the internet was ablaze with arguments and divided opinions, they remained completely silent. And that silence? It spoke volumes. While Bishop Palmer's comments were sparking debates across gospel communities, and Guerilla's nomination was going viral for all the wrong reasons, there was one prominent group that noticeably avoided the entire conversation. Maverick City Music. Not a word, and that silence didn't go unnoticed. For a group known for being bold in their faith, unafraid to speak out, and expressive in their worship, fans expected at least some kind of response, a statement. a cryptic Instagram caption, something acknowledging the tension swirling around this year's BET Gospel Inspirational nominations. But Maverick City remained completely silent. No press release. No posts, not even a subtle repost or story. And according to people close to the situation, that was no accident, it was by design. Let's rewind a bit. Since blowing up in 2020, Maverick City Music has become a powerhouse in worship and gospel music. Co-founded by Tony Brown and Jonathan J., the collective has made waves for breaking the mold, fusing soulful harmonies, modern worship, and multicultural representation that defies the usual expectations of the gospel scene. But their meteoric rise also brought with it deeper ties to the mainstream music industry. Through high-profile collaborations with KirkFranklin, label connections with Triple Records, and distribution through Sony Music, Maverick City has increasingly aligned with major entertainment outlets, BET, the Grammys, and even Amazon Music. So when the Guerilla controversy broke and BET was accused of quietly redefining gospel, Maverick City's silence started to feel a lot less like neutrality and a lot more like complicity. Gospel critic and podcast host Pastor Kenny Q said it best: Maverick's silence is louder than a shout. If you're truly committed to protecting the anointing of gospel music, why go quiet when it's clearly under attack? Their silence, many fans argue, seems less like a defense of gospel and more like a defense of their brand. But it gets deeper. There's the issue of BET's advisory boards, many of which reportedly include executives and creatives who've worked closely with Maverick City in the past. That means if Guerilla's nomination was part of a broader corporate strategy to reframe gospel for mass appeal, then Maverick's team likely knew about it long before the public did. And here's where things really start to feel tangled. Back in 2023, Maverick City Music made headlines for suspending one of their lead singers, Dante Bowe, after he posted controversial videos and was seen partying alongside secular artists. The group said at the time they were taking a step back to preserve the integrity of their ministry. But now, with a BET Gospel nomination featuring a secular rapper in the very same category and no public objection, many fans are calling it out for what they believe it is, a glaring double standard. So y'all removed Dante, but have nothing to say about BET blending gospel with trap? You were bold before, so where's that boldness now? This is exactly why people are leaving the church. No real leadership anymore. Still, some fans tried to defend them, suggesting maybe the silence was strategic, a way to avoid stirring up unnecessary drama. But gospel historian Dr. Elaine Powers doesn't agree. Maverick City isn't just a grassroots worship group anymore. They're a major commercial brand with millions behind them in funding and distribution. In this situation, silence doesn't mean diplomacy, it means business. And gospel music has always paid the price when business starts to overpower boldness. And speaking of business, KirkFranklin, often dubbed the godfather of modern gospel and one of Maverick City's closest collaborators, did finally say something. But it wasn't quite what fans were expecting. Instead of directly addressing the controversy, he dropped a vague Instagram caption about love, unity, and staying focused, a message many interpreted as his way of sidestepping the criticism while keeping his brand partnerships intact. Now the real question becomes, is gospel music still being shaped by the Holy Spirit, or has the entertainment industry taken the reins? A genre that once stood boldly apart now seems to be getting blended, branded, and subtly redefined right in front of us. But it's not just the silence drawing attention, it's who's being silent. And why not? For nearly 30 years, KirkFranklin has been the undisputed leader of contemporary gospel. From his groundbreaking anthem, Stomp with God's Property, to his headline-making collaborations with artists like Kanye West and Lil Baby, Kirk has always challenged the norms. But with that level of influence also comes scrutiny, and now many believe he's at the very center of the identity crisis currently unraveling in gospel music. Let's not get it twisted. KirkFranklin didn't just break the mold, he created a whole new one. He's the pioneer who made gospel music something you could hear in the club on Saturday night and in church on Sunday morning. His bold fusion of hip-hop, R&B, and theology earned him respect for modernizing the genre, but critics have been asking the same question for years. Has Kirk also diluted the message along the way? Now, with Guerilla's nomination under the BET Gospel category, Maverick City's deafening silence, and gospel's increasing commercial makeover, all fingers are pointing back at Kirk. Not as an outsider, but as the man quietly directing the shift. Why? Because KirkFranklin has been deeply involved in BET's gospel strategy board, a connection that was confirmed during a 2022 panel he co-hosted with BET executives. Their mission? 2. Reimagine gospel music for a new generation of both believers and curious seekers, especially Gen Z and millennials. At face value, that sounds visionary, even inspiring. But the end result? Gospel music is slowly being transformed from Christ-centered worship into little more than positive vibes with a religious flavor sprinkled in. This isn't just about theological correctness anymore, it's about reach, relatability, and relevance. In other words, if it goes viral, it goes beyond dot, and here's where things start getting real deep. BET didn't just anticipate the backlash. They relied on it. According to insiders familiar with the production team, BET was counting on controversy. Outrage drives engagement. Public backlash sparks debate. And nothing increases an award show's visibility quite like a heated theological argument online. Some insiders believe that this year's BET Awards Gospel Inspirational category was actually a planned PR experiment, a deliberate test to see how far the boundaries of gospel could be pushed without completely shattering them. One former BET music executive, who asked to remain anonymous, said the network was ready to shake the table. Gospel isn't pulling the numbers it once did, the source explained. There's real pressure to make it fresher, younger, trendier, and more clickable. Nominating Guerilla wasn't random. It was a trial run. They were testing the waters. And that wasn't operating solo. Major sponsors like Pepsi, Apple Music, and Amazon Music have reportedly been urging award shows across the board to lean into more socially conscious programming, favoring inclusivity of secular acts, gender representation, and cross-genre collaborations. This shift isn't about deepening faith. It's about boosting what performs on digital platforms. That's why some seasoned gospel veterans now believe the genre is being rebranded under corporate influence, not to destroy it but to reshape it into something more marketable, more sanitized, and easier to consume on primetime television. Even Donnie McClurkin, one of the most respected names in gospel, recently said on a podcast, "We're letting people who don't even know Jesus define what gospel is, and we're applauding it just because it's entertaining." Let's look at the deeper impact of this BET transformation. The line between worship and entertainment is growing harder to recognize. Artists are being nudged to soften their message of faith to appeal to the mainstream. Corporate sponsors, rather than spiritual leaders, are influencing who gets nominated. And maybe most disturbing of all, the sacred is now being packaged and sold as spectacle. What used to be a moment to honor kingdom builders, to come together in true worship, is fast becoming yet another celebrity red carpet event, glamorous, glittery, and driven by algorithms and applause. This is exactly why bishops, pastors, and everyday believers are rising up louder than ever before. Because if this gospel moment slides by unchecked, the BET Awards could end up being the template for how other networks commercialize spiritual music. But here's the question we all need to ask: what kind of gospel are we passing down to the next generation of artists?